Why God would allow a narcissistic fallen angel to cross the path of a chosen one. Why would he let darkness get so close to light, or let the deceiver test the very soul he set apart? It almost feels unfair, doesn't it? Yet hidden in this mystery is a truth so powerful that it can completely change the way you see your struggles. The very battles that feel designed to break you are often the ones shaping you into who you are meant to become. By the end of this video, you'll understand why the chosen ones are targeted, how God allows the fallen angel to test them, and the greater purpose behind it all. Stay with me until the end, because you may realize that what you thought was your greatest pain is actually your greatest preparation. And before we dive in, I'd love for you to join this journey. Subscribe if these truths speak to your spirit, and share your thoughts in the comments, because your story may be the very encouragement someone else needs today.
It is one of the greatest mysteries of life and faith. Why would a loving God allow a narcissistic fallen angel to cross paths with the chosen one, the very soul he has set apart for a higher purpose? To many, this feels like a contradiction. Shouldn't those who walk with God be protected from such darkness? Shouldn't their path be smooth, safe, and filled with peace? And yet, throughout history and Scripture, we see that the opposite often happens. The ones called by God are often the very ones who face the greatest battles. The chosen are tested, not because God has abandoned them, but because there is something inside them that must be revealed, refined, and strengthened. The narcissistic fallen angel does not appear by accident. It is a spiritual confrontation, an encounter that shakes the chosen one to the core, forcing them to see what is hidden within themselves and to discover the depth of their faith. The fallen angel, clothed in narcissism, thrives on deception, manipulation, and pride, trying to lure the chosen one into confusion and despair. But God, in His sovereignty, allows this meeting, not as cruelty, but as a form of divine training. Just as fire refines gold, pressure refines diamonds, and storms reveal the strength of a tree's roots, the chosen one's encounter with the fallen angel exposes what is weak while awakening what is unshakable. It is in this divine mystery that we discover a powerful truth. Trials are not signs of God's rejection, but of His preparation. A chosen one without testing would be fragile, unprepared, and unable to carry the weight of their calling. But a chosen one who endures the schemes of a narcissistic fallen angel walks out wiser, stronger, and more attuned to the voice of God. In this way, what the enemy intends for destruction becomes the very tool God uses for elevation. It is a hard mystery to accept, but within it lies a hidden assurance. Even when darkness presses close, the chosen one is never truly alone. God's hand is still upon them, His purpose is still alive within them, and His plan is unfolding even through the battle. The presence of a narcissistic fallen angel in the life of a chosen one is not the end of the story. It is the beginning of transformation, the moment when the chosen discovers that their strength was never their own, but a gift sustained by divine power. And when this realization comes, the mystery begins to make sense, not as a punishment, but as preparation for the greater destiny that lies ahead.
The fallen angel often shows up not as a roaring storm, but as a soft, convincing whisper that slowly rearranges a person's world. In the role of the narcissistic fallen angel, this being works as a disruptor, a deceiver, and a spiritual test all at once, aiming not merely to harm, but to expose what lies beneath the surface. As a disruptor, the fallen angel disturbs the rhythms of life. Relationships become strained, plans unravel, and peace is replaced by a persistent unease that makes even ordinary days feel heavy. This disruption is rarely random. It targets the chosen one's gifts, calling, or closest bonds, creating doubt and distraction at the exact moments when spiritual clarity is most needed. As a deceiver, the narcissistic fallen angel is skilled in disguise. It flatters where there should be humility. It twists truth into half-truths, and it offers shortcuts that seem to promise glory without sacrifice. Its language is attractive, and its moves are subtle. It borrows the vocabulary of faith while hollowing out its meaning, encouraging pride, entitlement, or selfish ambition under the guise of destiny. The deceiver's greatest weapon is misdirection. By redirecting attention away from God's voice and toward the self, it slowly erodes discernment until the chosen one can no longer tell whether they are responding to divine leading or to manufactured temptation. Yet, this role also serves as a spiritual test. And here is the paradox. What feels like attack is often a calibrated probe that reveals spiritual maturity or immaturity. Tests do not simply expose weakness. They provide a map of what must be healed, surrendered, or strengthened. When the chosen one faces manipulation, they are forced to practice discernment. When relationships break under the fallen angel's influence, they are invited to examine the health of their boundaries and the depth of their humility. When dreams are delayed or derailed, the chosen one must wrestle with patience and trust, rather than quickly blaming God or abandoning the call. In this sense, the fallen angel's work becomes a mirror. Harsh, uncomfortable, but truthful, showing where pride still survives, where compassion has grown thin, and where faith remains theoretical instead of lived. Importantly, the presence of such a test does not mean divine neglect. Rather, it points to a formative process where the chosen one learns to rely less on personal strength and more on divine direction. The role of the narcissistic fallen angel, then, is both destructive and instructive. It seeks to break what stands in its way. But in doing so, it also provokes the chosen one into a deeper dependence on God, sharper spiritual senses, and a purer, more resilient character.
Chosen ones are quietly set apart long before their first visible step into the world of purpose. Their calling is not primarily about fame or comfort, but about a mission that often carries weight, responsibility, and a higher clarity of vision. From early seasons of life, they show signs of difference, a gentle insistence toward justice, a restless heart that cannot settle for easy answers, or gifts that seem to open not for self-glory, but to serve others, mercy that mends broken people, words that bring truth to confused minds, wisdom that steers communities away from harm. These spiritual gifts are not trophies, they are tools meant for the work God entrusts to them. Because they operate in influence, and because their lives point to something greater than themselves, chosen ones become targets. The world, and especially deceptive spirits that feed on control and praise, sees them as threats to the status quo. A narcissistic fallen angel, for example, knows that a true leader who walks in humility can dismantle lies simply by living differently. So it seeks to silence, distort, or seduce the chosen one
into using their gifts for self, not service. Being targeted is not a sign of failure, but evidence that the calling matters. Trials force chosen ones to refine how they lead, how they steward their gifts, and how they stay rooted in motive and truth. In the crucible of opposition, their calling either crystallizes into clear, humble authority or blurs into pride and compromise. Ultimately, the reason chosen ones are set apart and targeted is twofold. They are prepared to reveal God's heart to a hurting world, and the very opposition they face becomes the proving ground that tests whether their gifts will be used for legacy or for likeness to God.
The question of why the test is necessary is one that echoes in the heart of every chosen one who has ever cried out in confusion, asking why life feels harder for them than for others. At first glance, it seems unfair. Shouldn't being called by God mean greater ease, greater protection, and greater favor? Yet the deeper truth is that trials are not signs of rejection, but rather the very evidence of being chosen. The test exists because there is something within the chosen one that must be revealed and refined. A faith that goes beyond words, beyond ritual, and beyond surface-level devotion. Without testing, belief can remain shallow, built on borrowed conviction or fleeting emotions. It is in the fire of trial that the difference between surface belief and genuine faith becomes unmistakably clear. When the narcissistic fallen angel enters the life of the chosen one, it does so with precision, pressing against the cracks in character, patience, and endurance. This is not random suffering. It is a purposeful test that reveals whether the chosen one's trust in God is conditional or unwavering. Anyone can proclaim faith when the path is smooth, but real faith is proven when the chosen one still holds on, even as everything around them begins to collapse. The test strips away illusions, false strength, shallow confidence, and dependence on people who cannot truly carry the weight of destiny. What remains is raw, honest faith that is no longer built on convenience, but on conviction. The necessity of the test also lies in preparation. A chosen one is not called to an ordinary life. They are entrusted with assignments that demand resilience, wisdom, and clarity. Without testing, they would lack the endurance to withstand greater pressures ahead. Just as a soldier is trained under harsh conditions before stepping into the battlefield, the chosen one is tested so that when real battles come, they are not easily broken. Every betrayal endured, every deception overcome, and every season of loneliness survived becomes training ground, sharpening the chosen one's ability to discern truth, endure hardship, and lead with humility. Beyond preparation, the test is also a witness. It becomes proof not just to the chosen one, but to the watching world that their faith is real. When others see the chosen one stand tall in seasons where most would fall, it brings glory to God. The narcissistic fallen angel may intend harm, but God uses the very attack to display strength, perseverance, and divine purpose in the chosen one's life. The test is never meaningless. It is a refining fire that proves faith, builds character, and aligns the chosen one with the destiny that was written for them long before the trial ever began. And so the test becomes not a punishment, but a profound confirmation. This one is chosen. This one is prepared, and this one is ready for the greater purpose ahead.
Struggle has a way of revealing what comfort never can. For the chosen one, strength is not built in seasons of ease, but in the pressing weight of resistance. At first, struggle feels like a cruel interruption,
as if life is deliberately stripping away joy and replacing it with hardship. But hidden within the pain is a kind of strength that cannot be learned from books, speeches, or second-hand lessons. It is strength born only in the furnace of trial. When the narcissistic fallen angel presses against the chosen one, using manipulation, rejection, or temptation, it feels suffocating. Yet every push of resistance calls the chosen one to dig deeper, to search for the roots of their faith, and to stand firm when it would be easier to collapse. Like a tree whose roots grow stronger after a storm, the chosen one develops endurance that cannot be shaken by the winds of circumstance. Clarity also comes in the midst of struggle. Comfort can blur vision, but hardship has a way of stripping away illusions. The chosen one begins to see people as they truly are, to recognize the hidden motives behind flattering words, and to discern truth from lies with sharper precision. Struggle exposes who is truly for them and who only sought to benefit from their light. It reveals where pride has lingered in their own heart and forces them to let go of things that were never aligned with their calling. In this clarity, distractions fall away and purpose stands out more vividly. What once seemed confusing now becomes simple. Walk with God, lean on His strength, and let go of what was never meant to stay. Wisdom, too, emerges from the ashes of struggle. Pain has a way of teaching lessons that success cannot. Every betrayal becomes a teacher, every delay a reminder of patience, and every deception a call to sharpen discernment. Chosen ones often discover that their greatest insights, the kind that guide others and heal communities, come not from times of victory, but from scars earned in the shadows of hardship. Wisdom shaped in struggle is lasting. It humbles the chosen one, reminding them not to rely solely on human ability, but on divine guidance. Resilience is perhaps the crown jewel hidden in struggle. To survive what was designed to break them is itself a victory. Each time the chosen one rises after being pushed down, they prove not only to themselves, but to the spiritual realm that they cannot be easily destroyed. The narcissistic fallen angel may celebrate temporary wounds, but in the end, every wound becomes a mark of survival, every scar a symbol of endurance. Over time, the chosen one no longer fears struggle. They recognize it as part of their shaping. And when they look back, they see that what once felt unbearable actually built in them a strength, a clarity, a wisdom, and a resilience that now make them unshakable. Struggle, then, is not their enemy. It is the hidden forge where God prepares them for their destiny.
One of the most misunderstood truths in the life of a chosen one is the difference between God's permission and God's plan. When a narcissistic fallen angel crosses their path, it is easy to wonder, if God is truly loving, why would He allow such darkness to touch someone He has called? Many confuse permission with intention, thinking that because God allowed it, He must have designed it. But this is not the nature of God. He does not cause evil, nor does He author deception, betrayal, or abuse. What He does, however, is permit encounters that become refining ground for the chosen one's soul. Permission is not approval. It is a divine allowance that transforms even the schemes of the enemy into tools of preparation. Think of it like a teacher allowing a difficult exam. The teacher does not write the student's mistakes into the plan, nor does the teacher enjoy watching the struggle. Yet the test is necessary to reveal what the student has learned, what must be improved, and what strengths are already established. In the same way, God permits the chosen one to face opposition from the narcissistic fallen angel, not because He delights in pain, but because He sees the greater maturity and strength that can emerge from the trial. His plan is always restoration, transformation, and elevation. Evil exists, but it does not have the final word. It becomes folded into a greater story where God's sovereignty reshapes it into growth.
When chosen ones misunderstand this, they risk blaming God for wounds caused by evil hands, which can lead to bitterness, mistrust, and despair. But when they recognize the distinction, they begin to see their battles differently. The fallen angel may intend harm, but God sets boundaries on what can be done, ensuring that the chosen one is never tested beyond what can ultimately refine them. This awareness builds resilience and trust. It helps the chosen one realize that while God does not create their suffering, He can weave even the darkest moments into a plan that leads to deeper faith, sharper discernment, and a more unshakable spirit. In this light, the chosen one's struggle becomes not meaningless pain, but a stage on which God's plan unfolds in unexpected, transformative ways.
The narcissistic fallen angel is a master of disguise, and its work is often more about soft erosion than dramatic conquest. It uses familiar tactics, manipulation, half-truths, pride, and spiritual confusion to quietly redirect the chosen one away from purpose and into compromise. Manipulation arrives like a friendly hand that slowly tightens into a chain, flattering words that inflate the ego, convenient counsel that steers decisions towards self-glory, and emotional pressure that makes the chosen one doubt their instincts. Lies are delivered subtly, mixed with enough truth to make them believable. Promises of quick success, reinterpretations of Scripture to justify selfish ends, or false narratives about who is really for or against the calling. Pride is its favorite tool because pride disguises itself as confidence and ambition. What begins as necessary courage can be coaxed into entitlement, making the chosen one believe the mission exists to serve their image rather than to serve others. Spiritual confusion, perhaps the most dangerous tactic, looks like spiritual language used for empty ends, pious phrases that mask manipulation, prophetic words that require unquestioning obedience, or doctrinal twists that make the chosen one doubt what is steady and true. This combination is effective because it attacks both heart and mind at once, eroding witness, clouding judgment, and isolating the chosen one from wise counsel. Discernment becomes essential not as an optional virtue, but as a spiritual lifeline. Chosen ones must learn to test every impression and measure every word against the still, consistent voice of truth. They need the humility to receive correction, the courage to set healthy boundaries, and the wisdom to separate emotional momentum from spiritual leading. Discernment grows through honest self-examination and through communities that refuse to trade truth for comfort. It requires daily practices, prayer that seeks clarity more than confirmation, study that roots understanding deeper than sentiment, and relationships that call out both gift and fault with love. When discernment is weak, manipulation feels normal, and deception can masquerade as destiny. When discernment is cultivated, the chosen one begins to recognize patterns, flattering counsel that always costs something, spiritual words that demand secrecy, and praise that seeks to control. Armed with discernment, the chosen one sees the fallen angel's tactics for what they are, and refuses to be drawn into a path that leads away from humility and service. In short, the deception of the narcissistic fallen angel is designed to hijack identity and purpose, but discernment, sharpened by humility, community, and a commitment to truth, becomes the safeguard that preserves the chosen one's mission and protects the heart from being rearranged by false light. The transformation of the chosen one is never a soft or simple journey. It is forged in the unseen fire of trials, sharpened on the edge of betrayal, and refined by the weight of battles that no one else can see. When the narcissistic fallen angel is permitted to cross the chosen one's path, it is not by accident. It is a divine arrangement designed not to destroy, but to prepare.
These encounters, though painful and confusing, become the training ground where the chosen one learns the discipline of discernment, the strength of patience, and the courage of unwavering faith. At first, the chosen one often does not understand why they are targeted, why relationships fall apart, or why those they trusted turn against them. But hidden inside these experiences is a chiseling process. Pride is stripped away, leaving behind humility. Fear is confronted until courage rises in its place. The longing for human approval is burned out, replaced with a deeper dependence on God's approval alone. Through rejection, the chosen one discovers identity. Through betrayal, they find loyalty to the divine. Through oppression, they awaken to authority and spiritual power. This transformation also sharpens their gifts. What once was an untested ability to sense truth becomes a laser focus that cuts through deception. The empathy that once made them vulnerable becomes the very force that draws others toward healing. The voice that was silenced by shame is restored with clarity and boldness, able to speak light into the darkest situations. Every wound becomes a doorway to wisdom, and every scar becomes a testimony that strengthens others. Most importantly, the chosen one learns endurance. They discover that strength is not found in escaping the fire, but in standing within it without being consumed. They realize that faith is not a feeling, but a decision to keep walking, even when sight is clouded and hope is dim. Over time, the chosen one emerges different, lighter, clearer, more aligned with heaven's rhythm. The pain that once felt like punishment is revealed as preparation, shaping them into a vessel capable of carrying greater assignments. This transformation is not about survival, it is about becoming. The chosen one is not left the same after facing the narcissistic fallen angel. Instead, they are refined into a warrior of light, able to stand with both tenderness and strength. Their life becomes living proof that trials are not wasted, that even betrayal can be holy ground, and that what was meant for destruction is always turned toward destiny.
The hidden protection of God is one of the most mysterious yet comforting realities for the chosen ones. Though their lives may seem marked by endless trials, betrayals, and encounters with narcissistic fallen angels, there is an invisible shield surrounding them at all times. To the natural eye, it often feels as though they are vulnerable and unprotected, standing in the midst of storms with no defense. But in the spiritual realm, boundaries have already been drawn and limits have already been set. The fallen angel is permitted to test, to whisper lies, to create confusion, but never to destroy. God's protection is not always about removing the battle. Sometimes it is about ensuring that the chosen one walks through the fire without being consumed. This hidden protection can be seen throughout the stories of faith. Job was tested, yet there was a divine hedge placed around his life that Satan could not cross. Every loss, every trial, every wound was under the careful watch of God's permission. The chosen one, much like Job, may feel stripped of comfort, reputation, or companionship, but the essence of their soul, the core of who they are, remains untouchable. This is the mystery of divine sovereignty. While it looks like the fallen angel is in control, it is actually God who holds the script. Nothing can happen without his allowance, and even that allowance is woven into a greater purpose. For the chosen ones, this means that every trial has an expiration date, and every storm has boundaries it cannot cross. A narcissistic fallen angel may launch attacks through manipulation, slander, or oppression, but the hand of God ensures that those attacks only go as far as they are allowed. Think of it as a leash. The fallen angel roars, but only within the space God permits. This is not weakness on God's part. It is wisdom. For without resistance, the chosen one would never discover their own strength,
and without pressure, they would never be shaped into the vessel they are called to be. This hidden protection of God is also a comfort because it reminds the chosen one that they are never abandoned in the battle. At times, they may feel isolated, as though heaven has gone silent and prayers rise unanswered. Yet even in silence, God is present. His protection is not always loud or visible. Often it is quiet, guiding the chosen one away from traps they didn't even see, or shielding them from dangers they never realized were near. How many accidents were avoided? How many betrayals cut short? How many hidden plots dissolved before they ever reached the chosen one's life? These are the unseen mercies that testify to the ever-present care of God. Moreover, this protection teaches trust. If God sets limits on the fallen angel's power, then no weapon formed against the chosen one can prosper. The weapons may form, they may even strike, but they cannot achieve the destruction they were intended for. Instead, they become tools of refinement. Each attack reveals another layer of resilience. Each betrayal strengthens discernment, and each rejection carves out deeper dependence on God. The hidden protection does not prevent the storm, but it ensures that the chosen one will not be lost within it. This truth also brings peace. The chosen one does not need to fight in their own strength. Too often, the narcissistic fallen angel seeks to lure them into unnecessary battles, to drain their energy in conflicts that lead nowhere. But the hidden protection of God reminds them that vengeance belongs to the Lord, not to them. Their task is not to retaliate, but to remain faithful. God Himself handles what they cannot. The very traps designed to ensnare them often backfire, turning into lessons of grace and demonstrations of divine justice. The hidden protection of God is also deeply personal. It does not only shield against external attacks, but guards the inner life of the chosen one. While lies are spoken against them, God keeps their heart from being poisoned by bitterness. While manipulation tries to twist their identity, God reminds them of their worth. While pride tempts them to rise in arrogance, God keeps them grounded in humility. This inner protection is often the most powerful, because it preserves the purity of the chosen one's spirit, even when the world around them is hostile. Ultimately, the hidden protection of God reassures the chosen one that they are never walking alone. Every step is measured, every trial is watched, and every season is accounted for. The fallen angel may appear powerful, but in reality, they are operating on borrowed time and borrowed permission. God holds the final word, and His word is always for the good of those He has chosen. This means that no matter how dark the night, dawn is certain. No matter how fierce the battle, victory is already secured. The chosen one must remember that protection does not always look like deliverance from the storm. Sometimes it is endurance within the storm. God does not remove every thorn, but He gives grace sufficient for every weakness. He does not silence every enemy, but He strengthens the chosen one's voice to rise above the noise. And when the time is right, He reveals His hand openly, bringing justice that no fallen angel can deny. So while chosen ones face tests, they are never abandoned. They may be pressed, but never crushed, struck down, but never destroyed. The hidden protection of God is their assurance that every trial is temporary, every battle is bounded, and every attack is overseen by the one who holds ultimate authority. In this truth, they can rest, knowing that even in the presence of a narcissistic fallen angel, they are still surrounded by a far greater presence, the eternal, unshakable, and protective love of God.
Betrayal, rejection, and oppression sting like salt poured into an open wound. And yet, for many chosen ones, these painful seasons become the unexpected doorway to spiritual awakening. When the narcissistic fallen angel's deception is finally revealed and the mask slips, what remains is not only raw hurt, but also the painful clarity that breaks the chosen one free from illusions that once dulled their spiritual sight. At first, the pain seems only to isolate. Friends fade, trusted voices fall silent,
and the chosen one feels the shocking loneliness of being misunderstood by those they once loved. But in the hush that follows the collapse of false alliances, a new listening begins. The frantic noise of approval and identity built around others quiets, and the voice of God, which had been competing with applause and fear, can finally be heard more clearly. Awakening through pain is not mystical escape from reality. It is the slow, honest work of peeling back layers that once hid the truth, layer by layer, until the heart stands exposed and, paradoxically, more real. In the aftermath of betrayal, the chosen one is forced to examine everything they assumed, motives, methods, and meanings. And in that examination, spiritual sight sharpens. What was once accepted as normal or spiritual is tested against a new standard, integrity. The chosen one begins to sense earlier warnings they ignored, to remember convictions they compromised, and to grieve the parts of their soul that were traded for temporary favor. This grief is not wasted. It becomes a teacher that instructs the chosen one in humility and truth. Where once pride might have been disguised as confidence, pain exposes the softness beneath it, allowing humility to grow like a new root system after a forest fire. As rejection tightens its grip, the chosen one often experiences an inward recentering. They stop looking to the crowd for identity and begin resting in the core of who God says they are. This shift is seismic. Identity moves from performance to presence, from doing for approval to being beloved despite failure. That reorientation changes how the chosen one prays, because prayer becomes less about asking God to fix their reputation and more about asking for purity, clarity, and courage. In the quiet, they rediscover prayer as conversation rather than a list of demands, and this intimacy steadily rewires their spiritual nervous system. With each raw conversation, the chosen one's faith becomes more anchored in relationship than in results, and their sense of calling becomes less about success metrics and more about obedience to truth. Betrayal, then, acts like a painful surgery that removes the cancer of public validation and leaves behind a heart capable of receiving and reflecting light without distortion. Oppression from a narcissistic fallen angel can also be the catalyst for discernment and boundary making. When manipulative forces repeatedly cross the chosen one's life, they learn to recognize patterns, flattering words that come with a cost, spiritual directives that strip away autonomy, and relationships that demand secrecy instead of accountability. The awakening here is both practical and spiritual at once. The chosen one not only sees more clearly, but also acts more wisely. They establish boundaries that protect their calling, refuse toxic narratives framed as destiny, and cultivate relationships that call them back to humility rather than inflate their ego. This newfound wisdom is not merely intellectual, it is embodied. It shows up in the way they enter rooms, the questions they ask before accepting counsel, and the courage with which they admit when they are wrong. The pain teaches them to prioritize spiritual health over swift advancement, to choose covenant over crowd, and to value truth over comfort. There is also a deep refining that happens inside the chosen one. Betrayal can agitate anger, but when rightly processed, it becomes a crucible for righteous indignation that fuels justice rather than revenge. The chosen one learns to convert bitterness into boundaries and to transform rage into redemptive action. Rejection can seed insecurity, yet when integrated through prayer and community, it can also breed compassion for others who are sidelined. In short, pain recalibrates the chosen one's emotional life, making them more empathetic, more sober, and more patient. Their compassion becomes wiser because it is informed by the memory of having been hurt and healed. This process of awakening is not linear or quick. There are relapses into old patterns, moments of doubt, and nights when the chosen one wonders if the pain will ever end. Yet, these very cycles are part of the deeper formation. Each small recovery from fear, or each return to truth in the face of temptation, strengthens a spiritual muscle that will support them in future storms. Over time, the accumulated responses to pain create a testimony that is both humble and powerful. The chosen one does not merely survive, they become a living proof that God's presence can transform injury into insight, persecution into purpose. Their life begins to read differently to watchers. Where outsiders expected collapse, they witness endurance. Where some anticipated compromise, they see integrity. Where many predicted bitterness, they observe mercy. Ultimately, awakening through pain reveals a sacred economy in which God turns what was meant for harm into the foundation for greater service. The chosen one emerges with a sensitivity to deception, a sharpened capacity for empathy, and a steadier reliance on divine guidance. They no longer measure success by applause, but by obedience. They no longer chase influence for its own sake, but steward it as a trust. The pain, once unbearable, becomes woven into the fabric of their ministry, not as a badge of suffering, but as the raw material of a deeper calling. In this way, betrayal, rejection, and oppression do not mark the end of the chosen one's story. They mark a conversion to a truer, more resilient form of spiritual life, one that can hold light in the midst of shadow and lead others out of their own darkness with wisdom born from the very wounds that once threatened to destroy them.
Victory over the narcissistic spirit is not won by clever words, human wisdom, or sheer determination. It is not about outsmarting the fallen angel or proving one's worth to the world. The chosen ones are not called to fight in the same way the narcissistic spirit wages war. Instead, their victory comes by light, by truth, and by divine strength alone. This is why the narcissistic spirit despises the chosen ones so deeply. It cannot penetrate the light within them, no matter how fiercely it tries to extinguish it. The narcissistic fallen angel thrives on deception, control, and illusions of power. It uses manipulation to bend others, pride to blind them, and lies to chain them. But these weapons only work in the dark. The moment the chosen one steps fully into the light of God's truth, the illusions are shattered. Lies lose their grip when confronted with scripture and discernment. Manipulation collapses when met with unwavering clarity. Pride is silenced in the presence of humility and grace. The chosen one learns that their greatest strength is not in fighting back with equal force, but in standing firm, refusing to surrender their identity or faith. Overcoming the narcissistic spirit is also about recognizing that the battle is spiritual, not personal. The chosen one does not need to seek revenge, prove themselves, or match the schemes of the fallen angel. They are reminded that vengeance belongs to God, and justice is His alone. Their role is to remain steadfast, to keep their hearts free from bitterness, and to allow God's truth to be their defense. This surrender is not weakness, it is the highest form of strength, because it shifts the battle into the hands of the Almighty, where victory is guaranteed. The chosen ones rise through resilience. Each attack that was meant to break them only refines them further. Each rejection teaches them to lean more deeply on God's acceptance. Each betrayal sharpens their discernment and strengthens their resolve. Over time, the very trials that once felt unbearable become the stepping stones to spiritual authority. The chosen one's scars transform into testimony, and their endurance becomes a beacon of hope for others still trapped in the grip of narcissistic darkness. In the end, the victory of the chosen one is not loud or boastful. It is quiet, steady, and undeniable. The narcissistic spirit cannot stand against truth, cannot outlast love, and cannot overcome divine strength. The chosen one emerges with peace that surpasses understanding, with wisdom that cannot be deceived, and with a light that grows brighter the more it is tested. This is the triumph God intended all along, that the chosen ones would not only survive, but also shine, proving that no fallen angel, no matter how deceptive or proud, can ever overcome the power of light and truth within them.
The bigger picture is often hidden in the very moments when the chosen one feels weakest, when they are misunderstood, betrayed, or crushed beneath the weight of trials. It is easy to believe that these battles exist only to break them. But heaven's perspective is far different. God does not allow the narcissistic fallen angel to test the chosen one as a form of cruelty or punishment. He allows it because each trial becomes a stage on which His glory is revealed. The endurance of the chosen one is not simply about personal survival. It is about making visible the strength, wisdom, and faithfulness of God Himself. In the bigger picture, these battles strip away illusions of self-reliance. Left to human effort alone, the chosen one could never endure such relentless attacks. Yet, when they stand firm, it becomes clear that a greater power is at work within them. Every time they rise after being knocked down, it testifies to God's sustaining hand. Every time they refuse bitterness in the face of betrayal, it demonstrates the transforming work of grace. And every time they choose light over darkness, they show the world that truth cannot be silenced and love cannot be defeated. God allows these encounters because they refine the chosen one into living vessels of His glory. The scars they carry are not marks of defeat, but seals of endurance. Their stories become encouragement for others still wandering in shadows, and their victories become proof that divine strength is stronger than any fallen angel's schemes. The bigger picture is not about the pain itself, but about what the pain produces: humility, resilience, discernment, and an unshakable connection to God. In the end, the chosen one realizes that they were never truly fighting for themselves. Their endurance serves a higher calling: to reveal God's light in places where deception reigns, to embody truth in a world clouded with lies, and to show that even in the fiercest battles, God's protection and purpose remain unbroken. The narcissistic fallen angel's attacks may appear destructive in the moment, but in the larger story, they are tools that God turns into testimony. The bigger picture is this: chosen ones are not broken by the battles they face. They are shaped, refined, and elevated by them. What the enemy intended for harm becomes the very ground upon which divine glory shines brightest. And when all is said and done, the chosen one's endurance becomes living proof that God's plan always prevails, His strength never fails, and His glory is revealed most clearly through those who dare to endure.